Gotcha. So that was probably the
So
issue.
if we unselect everybody, now everybody can see it.
But you don't want anybody selected then, right?
Correct. So we'll click save. So if nobody is selected, that means everybody can see it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So
Yeah.
okay.
So like this one has nobody selected, so that's that's good. Command vehicles. So here, everybody except for Candace and Kim can see this check.
Okay. So we just want to make sure on all those checks that if they're unselected, they can see it.
If they're so yeah, just
Just
the
don't
only
select it.
time, yeah, don't select anything. Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. This is always the hard problem is, you know, when it says users, you're like, oh yeah, here's the people that want to see it. And then, we get a phone call, like you're saying, hey, how come these people can't see this check? And there's not a clear explanation, like any documentation that really talks about this portion of it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, as long as nobody's checked, then that's when you want to do it.
Okay. Awesome. I'll work on changing those all right now.
Yeah. But yeah, great question. Yeah, glad you got in here and asked that. Anybody else? Guys, I know we kind of briefly went over checks a little bit. Does anybody else have any check questions that they're confused about or want some more clarity on?
Nothing from keys. I have them set up, but haven't set them live yet. We haven't been using it.
Well, yeah. So just remember when you're, once you created it here, then yeah, like Chris was saying, you got to come in here and then schedule those items, and then they'll start popping up for those particular days or events that you want them. And also, just let you know, on-demand checks will never show up on the dashboard because they're never due and they're never past due. So you actually have to go into that piece of equipment or that apparatus for this to actually pop up.
Perfect.
But yeah, no, it looks good. You got your, the vehicle checks and everything. Got it set up. They're set up for weekly, starting today. So they're going to drop every Thursday on here. So yeah, got them set up on the groups. Perfect. So, and this is going to be past due at 17/31. Cool. And then I know another emphasis we kind of talked about was the work order boards, getting those set up and put together. So we've got the work order board here already set up for various supplies and items here, being able to view that information here, coming in and actually editing and updating any information as needed, tracking any costs, inventory management, your history, those items in here. So good job getting that set up. Within the work order boards, obviously, then we want to ensure that we also have, any teams or users that need to get those notifications set up in here. So this is where you would actually come in and start selecting personnel, whoever needs to get the notifications or whoever's responsible for this apparatus board. This is who you would want to have added to this specific board. You can also create various teams of people as well. Now those teams can be set up down here in the admin menu under teams. You just click on add team, come in here, create that name, and then start selecting the users that you want to have associated with that specific team. You can create as many as you want. There's not any. Well, I created that. there's no limit on how many teams that you can actually create.
On that for keys,
Yep.
I don't believe that we're able or like we have access to create teams from what I saw.
You were able to, you said?
Yeah, like that's not an option in the admin
What department are you in?
keys file.
Keys fire?
Correct. KEYES.
Yeah,
Sorry, what was KA?
KEYES.
Let's just fix that here. It's fine here. Admin wall here real quick. I don't know why it's being such a pain here.
There's a lot of background noise.
I'm gonna find here, it's gonna be. All right, I'm just gonna take a note, for some reason my system's not allowing me to get into your administrative portal that I need to have. So I'll get that added. I took a note, so I'll get that taken care of for you.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for telling me. Want to make sure I get that updated for you. All right, anybody else not have anything set up that they haven't been able to see so far? Cool. All right, so typically after the overview, we'll answer a lot of questions and stuff like that. So one of the big things we're going to kind of talk about today is really your equipment lists, getting that equipment imported into your system appropriately, making sure that you have that information in here. He's got all kinds of good stuff in here. That's fantastic. This naming convention is really nice. It's a good way to do that because when you have this naming convention like this, what it's able to do is within this filter, you can actually come in here and select those specific items based off that group name. And we come in here. So if we wanted to look at just those 1.5 inch shutoffs, then we're able to capture that information by the equipment group and do that. The other bonus to that is when you're creating different schedules and checks and stuff like that, you can actually do it for the actual equipment group or apparatus group. And this really helps you maintain your schedules for those specific pieces of equipment. So great job getting that set up in that manner. It's going to be extremely helpful for your agency doing that. The other thing we can do too is if you want to create various views. So within here, you can see that as long as the equipment type is selected, you can certainly come in here and select those various equipment types, but you can also create different views for yourself by clicking add view and selecting some information that you might want to look at. You don't need to see every little thing in here. Maybe you just want to see some basic information. And within that field, you can come in here and select that equipment group and say, I just want to see all my shutoffs on a specific view, or I just want to see all my SCBA here on a specific view. You can create these views for yourself. You can, create it for other people, however you would like. And, you can even dive it down into, more information if you'd like, just to really kind of create yourself your own custom views within here to see various things. This works for all kinds of stuff, your work order boards, obviously your equipment, your inventory. You can create all kinds of views for yourself within here, which is really nice. Within each piece of equipment, any new equipment, we can come in, and the only things that are required for equipment is going to be your name and equipment ID. Those are the only two required fields that you have. Everything else is optional. Once you start getting into here, this is where you can start assigning items to users, compartments, storages, and pouches. You can even create home locations for your items. Maybe you have, a home location for a specific piece of equipment. You can get transferred all around, but at the end of the day, it's always needs to go home. So you could create that home location for specific items. Your make, your model, your serial number. Now you'll notice that serial number and equipment ID have barcode and QR code capabilities, which means you could scan that QR code or that barcode to enter that information in to these locations, which also means if you're using a barcoding system, that if you're in another location, you can then use that barcode to pull up that item or to do an asset verification during your checks. So kind of a double thing you can have with your equipment ID and your serial number in here. If you're doing any FEMA deployments, you can add your FEMA cost code here, ISO classifications. If you're tracking equipment hours. Now we do have an electronic product code. Now this is in here. You're not really going to use this at this moment, but it's there because we are looking at sometime next year putting in an RFID solution for our software. So that's why this electronic product code is there. We're trying to preemptively get some things in there. Manufacturing date, service year, month, testing days, months, purchase price. Is it a grant purchase, year of the grant, name of the grant? You can add that. What was your funding source for this piece of equipment? You can have that. Now your specifications is really going to get into the cool stuff within here is within this equipment type. These are all canned equipment types that we have. We can't create any custom ones, but we are working on adding some new functionality. But if we looked at rope, it would then change this information. Now we can capture the rope length, the stretch, construction lot number, all this information. What is the usage for it? We can come in here and look at our hoses. If we're tracking diameter, the coupler type, jacket type, hose type, really kind of dig into the weeds on a lot of this stuff. You may have this information, you may not. It may not be a big deal to you, or you may say, yeah, I'd really like to get into that information. But like I said, there's only two required fields. All the rest of this stuff is optional, but it is good information to have at some point. PPE is a real good one, especially if you're maintaining a good inventory of all your PPE, is being able to maintain the integrity and kind of capture those sizes for each individual piece of equipment, but also who it's assigned to as well. So that's something that's pretty cool within there. Now, you can enter in the equipment individually, one at a time. You can also use an import functionality. We have the import wizard here, and this import wizard will allow you to take any random file you find. We'll just use these guys here. We're not going to actually import this. you click on next, and what it's going to do is it looks at that sheet, and you're going to match up the names of that file with the first due database names to make sure that you're capturing the correct information. So in service here, they actually had it, they changed it to true. The group name, for some reason, it changes, but yeah, group name here, group name. And then what you do is you would click next. It would do a verification. It would actually tell you, hey, there's something wrong. Here's the issue. What line is the issue on? And then you're able to resolve those issues prior to uploading that information. So it doesn't have to be our sample spreadsheet. It could be any Excel file, but you would then have to match up those lines to make sure that it matches up with what our data is capturing. The other way to do it would be to download the sample spreadsheet that we have and pull that information in this way. So as you can see, it has a ridiculous amount of lines. This is all that information for everything that we saw, and then some. So you can add in all this information if you have it. If not, it's really not that big of a deal. Our group name here is going to be, what is that group name? You saw on the key site, the different group names that was attached there. That's a great way to manage your equipment. And then the name of that piece of equipment. So, great examples are, coats, jackets, helmets, hoses. Breaking them up into those various groups are going to be beneficial to you, especially for maintenance and just for sorting and management of your equipment. I had a department earlier today. They imported 13,000 pieces of equipment. And yes, it was 13,000, not 1,300. It was a ton of equipment. So trying to manage that, it is a cumbersome process, but breaking it down into groups is definitely going to make it a easier way to manage. So group name doesn't need to exist in the system. You can create that group name here on the spreadsheet. And once you create it here on the spreadsheet, it will create it in the system and then assign whatever is on that line to that specific group. So name and equipment ID are the only required fields. So name could be just any generic name, and then equipment ID has to be unique. It is a unique identifier, just like the serial number for that piece of equipment. So if you have equipment IDs already set up, then that's fantastic. You can just bring that information in. If you don't have equipment IDs, some people will use the serial number. Other people, they'll say, hey, can we auto-generate it through the system? The answer is yes, we absolutely can auto-generate that information and attach it to the piece of equipment. You will still have to then go around every piece of equipment and assign an equipment ID to that equipment just so that it will match up in here. The next is it in service? It's true. If it's primary, it's true. So we do have a primary reserve status for equipment, just like we do for your apparatus. This was a widely requested feature that we have. Make, model, purchase price, description, user. If you are wanting to assign equipment to a user, one of the easiest ways to do it is to put the user's login email address in here. And what it'll do is it'll search for that user in the system and then assign this piece of equipment to that specific user. Once that happens, it's actually going to show up and they're going to be able to see the equipment that's assigned to them on their dashboard when they log into the assets module. Apparatus and compartment. If you're wanting to attach it to a specific apparatus and to a specific compartment, we can do that as well. As long as that apparatus name exists in the system, then you're good to go. The compartment name does not need to exist in the system prior to importing this information. If you create a compartment in the spreadsheet, as long as this apparatus exists, the system will create that compartment and then assign this piece of equipment to that compartment for you on that apparatus. The same goes with a station storage and a kit as well. It's going to go to a specific station and you have the storage. You know what storage is going to go to. You can create that storage here and it'll assign it to that station and create that storage for you. And as long as the kit ID exists, you create the pouch name in here for your pouches for your kits. And then, serial number, manufacturer date, equipment type. This is where you would want the equipment type on the spreadsheet to match the equipment types that we have in the system. So making sure that if you want that equipment type to have those features and functionality that we saw here, then you would want to make sure that if you're bringing in your hose, that in the equipment type would actually have hose written in here. And that's really the biggest thing that you would want to ensure when it comes to getting this stuff imported in, is making sure all that information is correct, and then putting this equipment type in. If you don't really care about that, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to put that in there, but it does offer a lot of functionality for you. You don't have to assign anything to anybody or anything. You could just import it with the name and equipment ID, and then create groups and assign groups later. You can, put things in and out of service later. You can assign to users, kits, compartments, storages, all at a later date. I've seen a couple different ways of people doing these. You can take if you don't know which piece of equipment goes to what compartment, but you want to create the compartments on an apparatus, then what I've seen people do is create a fake part with a fake equipment ID, and then put that apparatus name in there. And then they're going to create the compartments here. And what that's going to do for them is it will create those compartments for you on that apparatus. Then they go in there and they delete the parts out of the compartment. And then they come back in here, put a new apparatus, and then put in a new compartment name, and it creates those compartments for them on those apparatus. So anyway, is perfectly fine. Just want to give you those options. Any questions? Excellent. So the next, we're going to look at our inventory management. Inventory is going to be functioning in just a little bit different manner than the equipment. We'll come back to some of these other ones here. We'll look at the inventory management. With new inventory, really only the name is required in here, nothing else. You can create inventory groups. We also have a set of inventory groups that we have available that you can utilize. But your SKU number is basically that part number for whoever you're buying it from. Medline, Lifesys, Henry Schein, Boundtree, McKesson, you name it. Current pricing, packaging, how are you receiving it? Any description? Do you want to track the quantity? You can have that turned on. Do you want to track your minimum quantities? Do you want to get notified if your item is below minimum? You want to track your par level or your maximum, your expiration date? Do you want to track that as well? Do you want to make all of these fields required? You could do that as well from here. And that's how you would do it individually. You can actually even come in here and use the actions button, and you can use an import feature as well. Now, the way that this functions is a little bit different than the equipment. You can't create compartments, storages, or pouches. All of those items would need to exist in the system prior to importing that information. So in that group name, the group name would get created for your inventory items, but only the name is required. You can put your description, your SKU, your packaging, price per unit, if you know what vendor you want to attach it to. And then kind of like what we saw with those toggles is, do you want to enable quantity, minimum quantity, notify below minimum, false is no, true is yes. And that's how you would look at these things. Required expiration date. This right here is going to be the soonest expiring date that you would put in. You're not going to put in all your expiring dates. quantity is what is your current quantity on hand. So if you do an inventory prior to uploading and you know that this is accurate, then you can import that quantity. If not, you can leave it blank. And then what is your minimum, your par for this? If it's going onto an apparatus and compartment, like I said, those places would need to exist in the system prior to upload. If it's going to go to a station and storage, also would need to, both the storage and the station would need to exist in the system prior to upload. And the same goes for your pouch as well. Now, because this functions a little bit differently, I always like to give an example from the Brea Fire Department. Is they did a pretty good job importing their information. They gave me permission to share this because it's a good example of how to do this. Is they wanted to put all of their items onto their apparatus. And so what they did is, here's the name of their item. They don't have a description, SKU, packaging. There's no group name. Here's their quantity. Here's the minimum. They don't have a maximum or a par. But this is what they want to have on every vehicle. So here is all the items. Here is all the compartments that everything goes onto. And then engine 3 is also going to be exactly the same. So here's engine 3. Here's all those items as well. Compartments, apparatus name. So all of these things existed in the system prior to uploading it. If they don't, then you're going to end up getting an error telling you that items don't exist and won't import it in. So you can see some of these items started getting a little bit different now that we go to, a different engine. They have different compartment configurations. So you could do exactly like this and import all your stuff and go directly into your specific compartments on those specific engines. The way that they want to do it, they wanted to make sure that they can conduct a full inventory on their vehicle at least once a week and capture all this information. So that's why they put each and every item in here. Now, everybody's a little bit different. Some people will want to know a full inventory of their vehicle on a regular basis. There's other departments out there that they just want to have a check sheet that says, do I have these items on here? Yes or no. There's really no wrong way to manage or do any of that. It's up to you and how you guys want to manage your various departments and how you want to manage your inventory equipment. So an example of that would be if I look at one of my checks here, engine 24 check is a department who said, we just want to make sure, we just need a verification every day or once a week that these items are on the vehicle. We're not conducting inventory. We're not, we don't worry about where all of our equipment is all the time. So the way they did it is, in the cab, do you have a mobile radio? Yes, I do. Do you have a map book? Yes, I do. So they just kind of go through and have yes or no, pass fails that say, do you have these items? They weren't overly concerned about, where items were. They just want to know if somebody opens up that compartment that they verified the specific information that's in there. And that's how this department likes to run. And this is perfectly acceptable to them. Another way to kind of conduct those type of checks as well is to kind of come in and maybe they really want to have like a full inventory of their specific vehicle. So something that they would do is they would end up coming in and having a full-blown check that goes all the way through, asks all the questions, and then at the end of it, they'll get into and they'll have all the compartments down here that's going to ask them to complete their inventory as well. Let me see here. There's going to be a apparatus somewhere here that has it. Compartment inspection. So within these compartment inspections, what they're doing is this is where you would actually have that inventory item where you're asking for your inventory. Do you have it? Yes or no? What's the number? What's the quantity you have? Are you checking expiration dates and lot numbers for those specific items? There we go. This one might have something on here. There we go. So here we go. We're going to say, yes, this passes. Do I have 2 on here? If I say no, I only have 1. It's actually going to prompt me to add this item to a restock stock list, which is going to ask me to restock that vehicle, where I'm going to track that kind of in and out and manage my inventory on that granular level. I'm not sure how many of you are going to be tracking your inventory on that kind of granular level. You may do it, you may not, but I'm always going to make sure you have all this information. Another thing is if something were to fail like this, where you're below minimum, it's not going to give anybody an email or a notification that an item was below minimum. You could, however, if you fail that item, it would prompt you to open up a work order where you could actually create a inventory work order board in here. And then the question that fails is always going to be in the summary here. So you're going to know that a case bandage is required to be resupplied. Need supplies. Once you create that work order, then a email notification does go off to whoever is attached to this specific board. And once you create that, then you're going to see that work order is going to be here. You're going to know who it got sent to, and hopefully it's going to get resolved, that day or within 24 hours, whatever your process is. So, consider what you are looking to accomplish in here and whether or not this would be an appropriate method for you to track your inventory. Or if you just want to say, no, we're going to track everything on a check, and if they need a resupply, they're going to walk over to the cabinet and grab what they need and hit the road. At the end of the day, there's no wrong way to use all this software. So you're perfectly capable of just managing it whatever you see here. So any questions about your inventory management and how you want to manage that? Right on. Cool. All right, let's talk about, your kind of preventative maintenance boards. So this is, well done, Keys, for getting a lot of this stuff done. It really helps out being able to see these items here. So we can see here, this water tender here's got a PM for tire rotation. It's triggered by the odometer. So every 5,000 miles, and we can click on the edit button and see that every 5,000 miles it's going to be due. The current mileage is 32,293. So the next mileage is going to be 5,000 above that. The work order type is a PM for a tire rotation, and it applies to that specific apparatus, which this is done perfectly here. So once this triggers, then a work order is going to populate and send those notifications. Now, if you wanted to start this early, you could come in here and hit this execute button. What this execute button will do is actually create that work order and send those notifications that, hey, I need to do this now. We're not going to wait till this mileage happens. So, and that's really good. You can edit in here as well if you need to delete that. Within these preventative maintenances, just kind of as a reminder, I know we go over it quickly on the overview, is you can schedule these days, weeks, months, years, kind of any frequency you choose. We could also come in here and trigger these with hours and odometer. You could do these two ways. You could schedule or trigger. So you could say, I want to do it every 6 months, or every 5,000 miles, whichever occurs first. You could also do two triggers where you could come in and say it's either going to be odometer or hours, whichever occurs first. Kind of up to you, however you guys are managing your preventative maintenance schedules for your departments. And then the same goes with equipment. You can actually do equipment hours, or you can't do two triggers, but you can do a schedule. So you can say, once a year or every, whatever use hours that you're conducting here. Does anybody actually track their equipment hours? Any of the departments that we have on?
We don't currently track our equipment hours, but we don't quite use our equipment as much as other departments like Modesto does. So when our chainsaw typically goes down, we take it in. Other than that, we usually just leave it in the engines.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but somebody will do it. Somebody will do it.
You can fake it out down here. You can,
So is there a fuel log in this system also? And is
There
that
is a
how
fuel
your
log.
mileage is gonna get triggered?
The fuel log, no. The fuel log is going to be a little bit different. You can update, come back into my apparatus. Within any apparatus, you can click on here and add fuel.
right here is what?
So
Okay.
you can use this, come in here, add, if you're tracking fuel, you could come in here and put in that item, and then it's going to update the engine hours and odometer this way.
Yeah.
And that would trigger your preventative maintenance. You can also capture it in your daily or weekly or
Daily,
monthly
weekly
checks
checks.
as well as part of the field update. Within that field update, you can then capture that data as well. So if you're looking at any apparatus here, and if you're tracking
You can tap
under field update, you can track engine hours and odometer here. And
Yeah.
it will update, and then that will trigger those preventative maintenances as well. So you can kind of do it in both places. It doesn't really matter. You can do one or the other, or you can do both.
a little bit more niche. It's hard for users.
So kind of up to you how you want to
Okay.
capture those engine hours and odometer for your department. Is your personnel really good at their fuel logs?
At the fuel logs, yes.
Cool.
Are
So
we
it's a
able
little
to
bit,
import those over from our current system also?
the fuel logs, they won't, no, they're not gonna actually attach to the
Okay.
apparatus themselves. You can upload anything you want using these upload utilities and kind of create, it's basically like a file explorer for First Do, where it just keeps everything in here. It doesn't attach to anything. It doesn't track. We are talking about doing that. It is something that is kind of on the roadmap. I can't tell you exactly when it's going to happen. There's a whole host of things we're looking at adding in the future development. So
That's okay. There's enough to do in this already. We'll wait.
yeah. Honestly, the assets module is the largest module in First Do. So congratulations. You've all been selected to win this prize. It is really nice to have all this information in one place. I very much understand. It's a lot of work and it could be very cumbersome. But really, at the end of the day, just take it one bit at a time. If you get, some equipment brought in, then take that equipment, those smaller chunks, and import those in. And kind of take your time, making sure that you're, getting them done, correctly. Don't try to take it all in at one time, because boy, that's just gonna frustrate you quite a bit. So I mean, the guy that imported 13,000 pieces of equipment, that really shocked me. It failed on him 6 times. The final time he went to bed and woke up in the morning, and it was finally done. So let's see here. So once you have some equipment in, and let's say you get some, apparatus created, and you get to the point where you're saying, yeah, I've got I want to start getting compartments created. I want to start getting equipment assigned. I want to start conducting inventories, equipment audits when they do their dailies and weekly checks. Creating those compartments is If you wanted to do it manually, you can do that. Come in here, put your compartment name in here, start adding in any inventory items that you want to capture. If you want to add equipment, you can hit the plus equipment. You can scan items as well, bring that in. You have a new feature called groups. This is actually really cool, is that within those groups that you've created, you can come in here and say, I want to add SCBA and I want to make sure I have a minimum of 2 on here. Once you do that, you create that minimum, that group there, and then you are looking for SCBAs, you can actually start coming in here and selecting the SCBAs that you actually have on that apparatus. And once you save that, now you have a group and it says you're supposed to have 2 items on this apparatus. Now, the cool thing about creating those groups and having groups created within your system is, let's get it here. Let's find one of these. Is you see where it says no group, non-grouped equipment, and you don't have anything here that says what your quantity is supposed to be, is because these are non-grouped items. So non-grouped items aren't going to allow you to give you that functionality of what your minimum quantity is going to be. So to capture that minimum quantity, it should be one of these is going to show it to me. There we go. So we can see here, we got non-grouped items. It doesn't give me a quantity, but then I have a hose group and I have a minimum quantity of 3. I'm currently missing 3, and I can see that because they're highlighted in red. I can continue on, and it's going to ask me why I'm missing items, or I can come in here and put in my 3-inch hose. Once I add in my 3-inch hose, then that marker goes away. I can verify all my equipment and then move forward with my check. And now that I'm in here, I can see that I have nested checks. Now those nested checks are checks inside of checks. I can see inside the officer compartment, I have a Zoll cardiac monitor and I've got some hose that is requiring some checks. Those checks is just, that's something else, but this is an actual daily check where I highly recommend a check like this for any piece of equipment coming in saying, is it in full operational, duty? What's going on with this piece of equipment? Is it ready to go? Batteries charged? Highly beneficial. We don't want anybody going out without a piece of equipment or with a piece of equipment not working. If something ever happens in the field, the first thing somebody's going to ask is, when was the last time somebody actually put eyes on that piece of equipment? When was the last time it was maintenanced? And those are all questions that you really want to have answers to, especially if you have a bad outcome in the field because of an equipment failure. You want to make sure you have your T's crossed and I's dotted on that one, that's for sure. I have been on the receiving end of those letters, and it is not fun to try to scramble for all that information. So having that information readily available is going to be hugely beneficial to you and your department. So seeing those nested checks, once those pieces of equipment are verified, we can actually see exactly which piece of equipment that is associated with this. So when we do these checks, those checks are actually associated with that specific item number. And then you can actually make these required, meaning they have to be completed before you can complete this daily check. You can do this entire daily check, run it through and do everything on it. But if you don't complete those nested checks, it's not going to let you submit this because it's telling you that you have checks that haven't been completed. So to finish them, you would actually have to come in and complete those daily checks before you can move forward. Which is really nice because some people, they'll just try to burn through them and not worry about those. Um, but you and I know that those are very important to get done. To maintain not only the integrity of your equipment, but the integrity of your department as well. Any questions on attaching those checks and getting those put together? All right. Let's talk about notifications here. So within the notifications, you're going to be able to create these notifications for service changes. So that's your in service, your out of service, your primary reserve, and that goes for your equipment, that goes for your apparatus. So being able to get those things here, you can do it by email, you can do it by internal notification, which is going to show up a little bell up top that you have a notification that something is done. The nice thing about that is, getting a lot of emails about things aren't always the best. So you can kind of do both. You can do one or the other. Put in those users. If you created those teams, and you can actually add that as well in here. Work order notifications. If you're already attached to a team that's on that work order, you're already going to get an email. So I wouldn't worry about adding yourself to this or even getting a notification internally, because you're already getting those notifications. If you're attached to a work order board and you're assigned to this portion here on notifications, you end up getting 2 emails. So I would be very cautious about using that if you use it at all. Notification of work order change status. I don't recommend putting yourself on here, because if you're already attached to the work order board, anytime a work order is changes status, you're going to get an email notification already. So you don't need getting 2. Now, work order resolution, you might want to put somebody on here. Maybe the chief wants to be alerted every time a work order is resolved, or maybe they don't. So that would be something you could do. And then the idle work orders, I do recommend this, is if a work order is sitting for a couple of days, but no action on it, then a notification can get sent out, basically saying, hey, this work order hasn't had any action in 5 days. Now you're gonna make some phone calls, you're gonna do some checking up on that. So that's something that you should certainly take a look at as well. Overdue equipment checks, overdue apparatus location kit checks. Yeah, I do recommend doing these. If you have overdue checks that are due by, 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, they're past due 1 minute later. If by 4 o'clock those checks still haven't been completed, then yeah, absolutely send that notification out, get somebody alerted so that they can, kind of get on that crew, maybe take a look and say, hey, what's going on? Maybe they've been at a structure fire all day. Obviously, there's no way they're going to stop to do their inspection. They're going to get a pass. But the crew's been sitting around all day, goofing off, playing video games, pickleball. Hopefully they made a really good meal, because they've been sitting around all day. Let's call them out on that for sure. Overdue kit checks, location, apparatus, they're all going to function the same. That notification below minimums. So this is where if you want to get notified below minimum, you also have to add yourself to this or add that team of people here to get those notifications that items are below minimum. And then lastly here is expiring notifications. If you want to get an email notification when items are below specific minimums, then you can certainly add those numbers, and you can change these to be whatever you want. But the 60, 30, 15 is a pretty good interval to get those notifications for that. External sharing, super cool. I know we've kind of looked at this, but this is that board here where I like to call this the accountability board, where you're going to be able to see the status of all your apparatus, but this is where you're going to see all the checks that are due or past due are all going to show here. So those crews that are sitting around all day, kind of goofing off, should have done their apparatus check first thing in the morning, it's gonna show up here that they haven't completed it yet. So if it was completed, it's gonna be blank. If it hasn't or it's past due, it's all gonna show here. We all know the old saying is, the chief walks in and, hey, we were just on our way to do it. They're all jumping up right now. This kind of helps resolve that. You can put this up anywhere in your station and people can see it. Excuse me, sorry about that. Our apparatus groups, you can create your various apparatus groups in here. The cool thing about these apparatus groups is being able to come in, create that group name, right? Engines, and then select all the engines that you have. So, Keys has, a bunch of utilities. So if we put in utilities, create that group, you can come in here and select all the utility vehicles. When you create these groups, if you assign a check to a group, anytime you add a new apparatus to that group, they will automatically get assigned to that specific check on that schedule. So having that is really nice. If you're creating preventive maintenances for specific groups of apparatus, you can certainly do that as well. You don't have a ton of apparatus, so you don't really have to do something like that. I don't know why it does that. So that's something you can do. Equipment groups are going to be similar. Looks like we already have a bunch of groups in here you can add, remove. If you wanted to add items to a specific group, you can come in here and do that too. We can already see that we've got small tools selected for the flashlights. So it gives you that little extra functionality. If we come in here and look at chainsaws, same thing, it's in the chainsaw group. So you could create these groups if you don't have that equipment type assigned in the import. Then you can always come in here and look up the name and then attach that equipment type to all of those items from this location as well. Makes it really nice to be able to do that in here. Location groups the same way. If you have multiple locations, you want to add, a fire group, EMS group, admin office, kind of whatever groups you want, you can do that. Groups are always recommended, and they're always recommended because, maybe not Keys, they got one station, but groups, especially if you're doing your work order boards, then you're going to separate those into groups, and it's just going to say ungrouped, which is going to tie in all of your group, all of those items. Kit groups the same way, creating those kit groups in here, attaching those specific kits in here. Fluid types, capturing all of your fluid types. So if you did want to capture fuel in here, then you would add in your fuel. You could, if you wanted to, capture in multiple types of fuel. Diesel, unleaded. You can put 87, 89, 91. Kind of whatever you want. If you got a farm apparatus out there, you want to put some red diesel in there, you could do that as well. Inventory is going to be that same process of capturing those inventory groups. Your packaging, if you want to add your various packaging in here, you can certainly do that and then select it from when you're adding in your items. Now, something else that's really cool in here is these request boards. So request boards work very similar to your work order boards. Is you're saying who needs to be notified of these items. So if a person or an apparatus needs to request items from someone, then they would be able to come in here and do that. So very similar to everything is you have your phases in here, right? New, name, fulfilled. You can have up to 5 of them. You're going to have your request types. Is it medical supplies? Is it uniform? Is it office supplies, janitorial supplies? What is the priority of that? Your inventory groups that are going to be associated. So this is where your groups come into play, is that you're going to say, you know, it's EMS supplies, it's airway supplies, it's office supplies, janitorial supplies. That's what this board is going to be for. So somebody can't order a uniform or office supplies on the EMS supply request board. So that's the cool thing about this, is being able to create those specific boards for yourself and for your crew members to be able to create those specific requests. My request boards, I need to fix them, but you would come in and you would go to this request function and you would click on inventory request. You can find the board that you want to select it from, who is submitting it. The crew member will find their name. What kind of type is it? It's a supply. When do I need it by? Need it by tomorrow. Where, who is, you know, is it a user? Is it a location requesting it? You can say, you know, maybe an apparatus is requesting it. So I can come in here and say medic 1 is requesting something. And then I'd be able to come into here and type in the item that I'm looking for. And because I selected medic 1, where it's, you know, cabinet 1 needs this, I need 1 item for that. Add my comment. And then you can see your history here. Once things are up and running, I'll save this. Because I save it, an email notification is going to get sent out to the proper people who need to see it. I can come in here and I'll sort through it and I'll see this new request right here. Now I'll be able to come in and as an administrator, I can edit this, but really what I want to do is I want to actually click on here and I want to say, hey, where am I restocking this from? I'm going to stock it from this location. Now here's kind of the tricky part, gets a little confusing sometimes, is you can fulfill or you can fulfill and complete. So the fulfill means I'm going to pull out of inventory, but I'm not yet going to give it to the location that requested it. And that's what fulfill would mean. If I'm going to complete the full circle of it, where I'm going to pull it from inventory and actually hand it to or place it into that apparatus, then I'm going to fulfill and complete. If I'm just going to fulfill this, I'm going to pull it and maybe, you know, you guys have a courier system, or we're going to take it to that location, or, you know, wait for that person to come in. Then what we'll do is after that, we'll click on the fulfill button again, and we'll see that fulfill has been completed because we've already pulled from that EMS supply room, but we haven't yet added it to this location. So the next we're going to do is hit the fulfill and complete. And now we have actually closed and completed the circle on that inventory request. You could set this up where employees can request uniforms, they can request supplies, the apparatus can request supplies, the stations can request supplies. If you have multiple locations and you're wanting to pull, instead of placing orders for items, you want to transfer items from one location to another, then utilizing the request board is going to be your best bet to move those items around. Any questions, concerned, overwhelmed, ready to get after it?
Yeah, Justin, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
I apologize, I had to step away. I'm not sure if you went over the preventative maintenance section yet. But I was trying to set that up for keys. Basically, I was trying to spread out our apparatus kind of quarterly for the preventative maintenance, either quarterly or like, you know, every 5,000 miles, whichever one came first.
Yep.
I was able to obviously set that up, but that next due date for each apparatus kept changing to today's date, like when I would go to the next apparatus.
Well, while you stepped away, we actually used you as an example because you actually had a bunch of these set up. So yeah, you should be able to, you know, if we did every 3 months, right, we should be able to, you know, that should be the date, right?
Yeah.
So it's 3 months from today's date. And then if you needed to change that, you should be able to come in here and make that adjustment for that date.
Right. I was able to go in and change it, but when I would go to like the next apparatus and update that date that I wanted, it would like automatically change the one that I did previously back to today's date.
Well, that's not cool.
It was basically, so I was trying to do it, I guess, yearly. So, you know, every year in January, we're going to do a service on engine 40. And then every year in, you know, April, we were going to do a service on brush 40. And it would just keep changing the dates.
Okay, I kind of see. Yeah, so this one is still okay. Yeah, this is for some reason. Yeah, this is showing next year on today's date. This is showing 3/1. If that happens the next time, I recommend take a screenshot before, and then if it starts changing after you do something, take another screenshot because I want to get that over to. I'll still mention it to our team, but I want to make sure if it happens to you again, get some screenshots.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I just wrote that down because after this meeting, I'll send them a note to, you know, see if they've heard about that. Yeah, maybe there's something going on that they're already working on. And I could hopefully fix it for you.
Sounds
But
good. Thank you.
yeah, um, but yeah, I mean, good job getting all this set up. I mean, you did a nice job doing this while you were gone. I did use you as an example, as it was done well, and it's it's how we would recommend it to be done. So does anybody have any questions or concerns? I don't want to kind of drag this out just for the sake of dragging it out and giving you a whole lot more information to kind of confuse you or make things more difficult for you. I know this is a pretty cumbersome process, and I want to make sure that we'll set up another meeting. I don't care how many meetings it takes for us to get this going. At the end of the day, I want you guys up and running and be successful in this. Do you guys know about our Q&A sessions that we do every Wednesday and Friday for our assets?
I do not.
No.
But it's my job.
Man. All right, so I'm going to send this to you guys in the chat. I'm also going to send it to you in the follow-up email. So every Wednesday and Friday at 11 o'clock your time, we have an open Q&A for assets, and you can just come in and you can register and then just come right in and just ask questions. It's this session here. You're going to have at least 2 product specialists on. So you're going to have myself, Christopher, and Stephanie, and Trey is our boss. Tomorrow is going to be Stephanie and myself. But typically there's going to be 3 of us on there, and you could just jump in, and it's an hour long, and we're happy to answer all questions and kind of walk through any process. There's going to be other departments on there. They may be doing something in a way that you find interesting. You're like, yeah, I could totally do that too. Or they ask a question that you didn't think to ask. But we have breakout rooms. So if you want one-on-one time with the product specialist, we can break off and do a separate room and do that as well. So it's extremely helpful. We welcome everybody to come in. We got to be on there anyway. So, join us, come hang out for a little bit, or at least block some time off your calendar. I think Wednesday, I think we had 15 people on. That was the most we've ever had. It was a good time. Lots of people asking questions. We try to make it as collaborative as possible. Is anybody going to be attending the Unify conference at the end of this month? Yeah, cool. I will be there. I'll be giving 2 sessions on equipment and apparatus checks, and then I'll be doing another one with one of our trainers. He's going to be leading that. I'm going to be backup for him. So, Chad, when you're there, seek me out. I'd love to meet you in person.
Thank you again.
Yeah, cool. So what I'll do is, we'll wrap this up. I'll send you guys an email. I'll also send out the link. You guys can coordinate when you guys want to get on another call. Technically, it'll say optimization. And like I said, if you guys say, hey, look, let's have another call. Let's kind of get going on this. I know that's hard with these multi-agency calls, as everybody might be doing something a little bit different. You guys are all extremely busy. So we'll work around your schedule to make sure that everybody gets up and running. If somebody needs to have a separate meeting outside of this, I'm welcome. I welcome that as well. So I appreciate all of you, all the hard work you guys are putting into doing this. I know this isn't the only thing you do all day. So I appreciate it. Everything you guys do. Like I've said it before, I have friends and family that live in the area. So, I appreciate you taking care of them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right. I'll talk to you guys soon. Chad, I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Bye.